Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Right after 9/11, I graduated from the Institute for Law Enforcement Administration and took a job as an airport police officer. I moonlit in a small town as an aluminum extrusion foundry night watchman. One of my duties was to go to a satellite facility and check the locks. As I did this one early morning, I passed a corridor that had a locked glass office door at the end. Out of the corner of my right eye, I to this day swear I saw the back of a leg like someone was going past the door. I went down and tried the handle. Locked. I went to the other side of the production office, which would offer a view down the hall I thought I saw the person in. Nothing. Door was similarly locked. I noted the time and wrote down that I thought I saw someone. I was approached by the full-time guy a few days later who asked me to rewrite what I wrote. He said, "If the HR woman who hired you found out you think you saw a ghost, she'll fire you." So I just rewrote it. About 2 weeks later, I was talking to the plant manager, and we were joking about the other building. He goes, "I like to go to that building and go number 2 since no one bothers me." He stopped laughing and said, "But I've been scared in that place before." I asked him to explain. He recounted that one time he was there and in a stall reading something and someone had come in. This bathroom was kind of odd. The stalls were on a raised platform. You had to step onto it to get into them. He said this one night someone came in, walked just shy of the stall he was in, and then stopped. He could see the feet. They turned, faced the empty unit next to him. They turned again and walked out. He said he had never been so scared in his life. He finished up and went out to check the alarm box. When you came in after it was set on, you had to enter a code, but the last code entered was his from 30 minutes prior. This was my only spooky job thing in my entire career so far.
Some background. I was a cop about 5 years ago for a smallish town. At the time of this story, I was a trainee on the road with an experienced cop, also ex-Marine and just an overall cool dude. I'm changing names and location names. It's my first week of training. I am still jumpy because they have you watch all sorts of videos of cops getting gunned down and stabbed to try and get you hyper alert. My FTO, field training officer. Joe is an ex-Marine combat vet of Iraq. Turns out he saw some serious shit, but he didn't reveal this to me until much later in our relationship. Working midnight shift. Lucky Strike, which is a bowling alley and arcade, has an alarm that is triggered. When any alarm goes off, we gotta go check it out. 99.9% of alarms are bull, like the home or business owner forgot the code or didn't enter it in time, or it's literally just going off for no reason. Lucky Strike is known for false alarms especially. On the way there, Joe tells me, "This is totally bullshit, but treat it like it's not." Another officer, our shift corporal, arrived there shortly before us, radios to us. The door to Lucky Strike is open. Oh, maybe this is actually real. Get there, as is policy, corporal hasn't entered yet, because if you see an open or smashed door or window, you wait for backup before going in. Joe tells me it is still probably bull, so keep my finger off the trigger and don't go crazy. It's dark, no lights, but our flashlights on our Glock 17s. Can tell Joe and corporal are super relaxed. I feel like I'm walking point in Vietnam. Announce our presence everywhere. Walk entire interior. Don't see anything out of the ordinary. Yep, this is bull. We leave. Corporal gets called about some drunk who wants to talk to the supervisor, so he hauls ass out of there. We are gone for about 5 minutes when we get another alarm call. Lucky Strike. Joe just starts maniacally laughing and tells me, "Welcome to the police." We pull back up and the front door is open. Joe just lets out a massive sigh, tells me about some municipal code that he is going to use to cite the owner of the place for constant false alarms wasting city resources after we secure it again. We have to secure the whole place again. Joe tells me to walk back toward the kitchen. He'll go into the arcade and we'll meet in the middle. This time I'm not really freaking out because I know it is BS. Don't see anything out of the ordinary. Heard the radio key up. Joe says he has contact with a kid in the arcade. I'm on my way. Speed walk there, don't see anything. Not even light from Joe's flashlight. Key up, ask for his location. The arcade. We're in the arcade. Keep walking around, can't find him. Radio in that I have no idea where he is. Just meet me outside. That's easy enough. The exit signs are still illuminated. Go outside, see Joe sitting in the passenger seat with the laptop typing, sit in the driver's seat, look back to see the rear seat's empty. Before I can even ask, he flips the laptop around and shows me all the citation report bullshit he is writing the owner. Where's the kid? Kid? The kid you got in the arcade. Just gives me the biggest what look. You told me on the radio you had contact in the arcade. I heard it. He tells me he said his side was clear, and he was going into the car to write the citation. Check radio was on the wrong channel. We always used channel 1 on patrol. My hand probably bumped it by accident, which happens all the time. The entire time the alarm was blaring. Joe told me somehow the noise probably messed with my hearing. Never had anything like that happen after.
I'm a small-town police officer in Tennessee. In this job, you see some strange things. This story might take me a couple posts. It takes place over some time, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I'll try and condense what I can. About 2 years ago, get dispatched to a welfare check on an old-timer that lives on the very edge of our jurisdiction. His neighbors, which live 3 miles away, haven't seen him in a while. Probably passed away, but I'll go check it out. It's around 9 p.m. when I arrive. The lawn looks cut. No mail accumulation. See what looks like a lamp or something on the inside, so I know this fellow prob isn't dead. Knock on the door. Old dude hunched over, maybe 5'7", answers. Explain that his neighbors called because they were worried. I ain't dead quite yet, he, but I am glad you're here. At this point, I groaned internally. Old people love to make a big deal out of little things or just talk to you forever because they're socially starved. Oh? Why's that? 'Cause I got all this coffee made and nobody to drink it with. Keck, I couldn't help but smile at this dude because he had this good old boy accent and cheesy toothless grin. Screw it. I'll kick it with this old-timer for 5 minutes. We wind up drinking a cup of coffee on his porch together at night. Being a night shift officer, I didn't really think anything of this until we were sitting there in the dark together, and it clicked that this old dude was A, awake, pretty late for his age, and B, had coffee made and is drinking it this late. So do you have a night job or something? No, sir, I don't. You just don't intend on going to bed anytime soon. This next moment I remember vividly because it was downright cinematic. He took a long sip of his coffee, placed it on the wicker table on his porch, and looked at me. To tell you the truth, sir, I'm afraid to be here by myself at night. I don't want to go to bed. Why? Starts telling me about how whenever he tries to sleep, he hears the leaves outside his home get kicked around and scratching. Well, living out here, it could be a bear. No, sir, it is not. He said that with such conviction, I wanted to believe him. Well, then what is it? He then goes on an old country boy soliloquy about how he's lived here all my life and I know what noises animals make, but nothing really beyond that. Just tell him to keep his doors locked and call 911 when it happens again. He cracks this big grin and just says, No, I don't want to bother y'all. If I called you every time it happened, you'd be here every night. We shoot the shit for another few minutes, find out this dude was a Marine. His wife passed last year just like that. Finish my cup, thank him, and bounce. A couple hours later, one of my fellow night shift officers gets dispatched to the old guy's house. I decided to tag along because nothing else is happening and I'm curious. By the time I arrive, an old guy and an officer are chilling on the porch. What's up? Old guy cracks another big cheesy smile, starts telling me he took me up on my offer of calling the cops because he heard noises outside. It is now probably like 12 or so. Me and another officer walk the perimeter of the house looking for anything, don't see anything. Tell the old guy we don't see anything. How about some coffee? Again with his cheesy grin. Would 100% do it, but to be honest, we're not supposed to. With another officer there that I didn't know well, I decided to pass. As we're leaving and giving him directions to just call if he's scared and make sure his house is locked up, he follows us to our cars off his porch. Other officer leaves, almost like he wasn't interested in talking to the old dude. Crazy, I know. Old guy just keeps trying to keep the convo going, not sure if because he was scared or just being a typical old guy wanting to socialize. Eventually find an out and leave. This next part takes place a bit later, don't remember how far apart. A little backstory is required. At the start of every police shift, we did a roll call. It's basically a meeting where you're told about something that has been happening around town by a supervisor. I mention this because our shift supervisor mentioned an old guy keeps calling at night for officers to check around his property. I, of course, immediately knew who he was talking about. Sure as shit, we get called again. Dispatch radios for any available units to volunteer to go to old guy's house. They usually do this when they know a call is bull. They're basically asking us, who wants to take one for the team? I volunteer because A, free coffee, and B, I like this old country boy. When I arrive, again it is around 9 p.m. Old guy is standing on his porch, no light on. By this point I knew his name. He told me to call him Red. Howdy, Red. Barely reacts at all, just raises his hand up, which, keep in mind, he's only a shadow to me. I ask him if we can turn on the porch light while I am walking up, and he doesn't move, doesn't say anything. Stand there in awkward silence. All right, come over here in my headlights then. As he walks into my lights, I see his skin is irritated as hell. It reminds me of how somebody's skin looks after they take a really, really hot shower. What happened to you, man? What do you mean? You're red, like you got burned or your skin is irritated. Well, I've been in the woods. Why? Just on a walk. Why are you going for walks when it is dark and you said you're hearing strange things outside at night? This was earlier. Tell him I'll do the usual routine and poke around outside. What was weird is he always stayed on his porch, but this time he at first tried to follow me until I told him to hand back. I see nothing. I tell him I want to get him EMS. He refuses. Because he made no threats of self-harm, I can't force him. Last part. I will go into as much detail as I can for this first part, but I arrived later to the call. Maybe a week later after that weird interaction with Old Man Red. I start my shift. About an hour in, dispatch relays that someone needs to relieve a mid-shift officer at an old guy's house who was taking a report. Why not? Arrive. Red is sitting on the wicker table on his porch, and the officer is standing on the stairs. Officer is a newer guy who had spent an hour on this call and had no clue what to do. Apparently, Red's neighbors called a welfare check. They saw him walking. They lived a little over 3 miles away, around their property, looking confused. Now that the officer is there, Red seems put together, no cause for alarm. As I am walking up to talk to the other officer, a smell of copper slaps me in the face. His skin still looks messed up, his hair is unkempt, and overall he just seems off like before. I tell the new officer we basically can't do anything and to just go home and I'll pick it up from here. I just ask Red if he's good. Yeah, you aren't confused? No. Keeps giving me one-off answers. Hey, Red, what is that smell? Don't know. Well, alrighty then. So I leave. I just didn't have anything there. About another week goes by, we get another welfare call. This time the neighbors went to Red's home to invite him to some kind of function. Apparently they went to the same church. They hadn't seen him in a while, but were seeing him walking around the woods and were obviously concerned. When they got to his house, they said they smelled death and expected him to be dead inside. So that is where I came in. Arrive. It is the smell I smelled before, only 10 times worse. Kick in the door after knocking. Old man is dead right there in the living room at the bottom of the stairs. I know bodies. This man has been rotting longer than a few days. Neighbors say they saw Red yesterday wandering around, tried to flag him down, and he ignored them.
Dementia could explain it. I had a relative with bad Alzheimer's that I could see being like this. That is, explain it all except for the corpse looking old. I don't know about that one. As far as dementia goes, though, he lived alone. No one was able to recognize when he stopped doing what he was supposed to. He probably stopped making his meds, wasn't eating and hydrating properly, washing himself, brushing his teeth, etc. In fact, what you might have smelled the first time could have been a raging infection, maybe even in a large wound he was just oblivious to that overtook him completely, which might have overtaken him and tainted the flesh on his whole body, like sepsis or gangrene. That can stink. Even something as small as some rotten teeth can fill a room. Anyway, the demented often wander around without even knowing they are lost or confused. He could have been in the woods for days at a time before finding his way back home in lucid moments. Also explains his paranoia early on. That's common as well.
As I said, it is entirely possible he had undiagnosed dementia. But being a cop for a while, you develop a good sense of being able to feel out a vibe a person is giving off. Red was not well after that first interaction I had with him. It was either due to confusion or that it wasn't the same person or not a person at all.
Member of local militia. Not stereotypical fat, drunken rednecks, several ex-current mill, several ex-current cops, a lawyer and a CEO of a small company who help bankroll the group, and about a dozen others who work in construction, IT, etc. I'm a school teacher, ex-cop. We do search and rescue for the local national forest, help with rescue and relief efforts after a tornado destroyed a town in the next county, raise funds for charity, etc. Also volunteer with local Boy Scouts and 4-H groups teaching wilderness survival skills, marksmanship, etc., and taking them camping. Field exercise one summer, patrolling with blanks and getting ready for an opposing force event. It's dark, we're all gearing up, and we hear gunshots a couple of miles away. Don't know who else is out here, but decide to postpone shooting a bunch of blanks so we don't scare any campers. Red distress flare goes up on the other side of the hill. Check CB and ham radio. Nothing. Another flare, then more gunshots. We launch a green flare to signal that we see their distress flare and are coming to help. Radio the sheriff that something is off, and swap gear. A couple guys put on reflective vests for search and rescue, and everybody swaps blanks for live rounds. One group stays at camp. Another group jumps in a couple SUVs and drives down the road in the direction of the flares, and the rest of us set out on foot. We're thinking it might be a camper or hunter getting attacked by a bear or wolves and needing help. The gunshots seem panicked, not fired in threes to signal distress. None of us are in stealth mode. We've all got flashlights, chem lights, and reflective vests to provide as much visibility as possible. We hear a couple more gunshots and then it goes quiet. Base camp says they haven't seen any more flares. Detour around a sudden crevasse. Everyone is loud to ensure nobody accidentally falls in or gets separated, and the guys in the lead are calling out to anyone that needs help. Suddenly, one of the guys yells, "Who's that?" We're all shining flashlights in the direction he's pointing. Nobody sees anything. He insists he saw someone step behind a tree when he shined his flashlight that way. We call out, get no response. A couple guys go to investigate but don't find anyone. Just the shadows playing tricks on the kid. Continue toward where we think the flares came from. Launch another green flare so base camp can compare our position with where the distress flares came from. We're close. Group in the cars can't get to us. The road turns unexpectedly. They're heading back to camp. We all hear a generator off in the distance and shout if anyone needs help, wave our lights around. A few minutes later, we step into a clearing. Pickup with a small trailer attached. Generator powering the trailer. Campfire that's mostly embers. A couple lawn chairs set up. One that's tipped over. Whoever was here dropped their food on the ground. Plates and hot dogs scattered near each chair. Call out, get no response. Trailer and truck are empty. Investigation reveals a bunch of 9mm brass around the campsite. More is inside the trailer, along with an empty Glock magazine. Looks like whoever was shooting started outside, then went inside, reloaded, and shot through the windows and walls. No guns, no people. Find an orange plastic flare gun and 2 spent shells next to a cell phone just outside the campsite, along with more 9mm brass. We spread out, calling out for anyone who needs help and searching the area. Base camp says the sheriff is on his way. This is super creepy. Where the hell are these people and who or what were they shooting at? Suddenly I heard, "Who's there?" shouted on the other side of the campsite. One of the guys says he saw a really tall person step behind a tree. We investigate but don't find anyone. Decide to all leave the campsite so we don't contaminate any evidence more than we already have and wait for the sheriff. Flashlights off, just our chem lights glowing while we talk with each other about what the hell is going on. "Hey, you see that?" We all wait, and a few seconds later there's a dim flash of blue in the trees. What is that? We don't see the blue flash again, but there's a dim red glow high in the trees off to the right of where we saw it. Decide to investigate. Somebody may be hurt, or it could be a fire. As we get closer, everyone starts feeling uneasy, like there's a pressure in the back of their head. I'm starting to feel nauseous, like I've got a bad migraine. Suddenly, we're all blinded by a beam of light coming from the tops of the trees. We shine our lights right back and yell for whoever it is to get the light out of our eyes. The light moves, suddenly darting to another tree about 30 yards away, still pointing at us. At this point, I'm thinking it's a drone. The jumpy kid decides to be an idiot and takes a shot at the light. The light vanishes, and while half of us are chewing his ass out, the other half, myself included, are still looking for the source of the light. Eyes still dazzled, even with my 200 lumen tactical light, it's hard to make anything out. Suddenly I hear something crash through the brush off to my right. Spin and catch what looks like a really tall person ducking behind the bushes. "Hey!" I give chase. Buddy runs after me. Right as I get to where I saw the person, it suddenly feels like somebody dumped ice water on me. I fall and can hear my buddy fall right behind me. I try to get back up, but I can't move or even talk. Next thing I know, I'm on my back with our medic shining his light in my eyes, slapping me on the cheek and asking if I'm okay. Apparently my buddy and I both passed out at the same time. Tell them what I saw. Get told that everybody searched the area after we collapsed and found nothing. We're both sitting against a tree discussing what happened. Buddy didn't see anything and was just following me. Guy in charge decides we're staying put and not searching any further until the sheriff arrives. Sheriff is at base camp. Some of our guys are going to lead him and a couple deputies to us. We launch a parachute illumination flare, turn the whole area into daylight for a few seconds and show our position. Sheriff shows up 30 minutes later. Impressive given the terrain and darkness. Sheriff and deputies check out the campsite. We tell them everything we experienced. Sheriff knows where the trail the campers drove in on meets the road. Radios in for more deputies to join him. Sheriff and deputies are going to stay at campsite and secure it. We're heading back to base camp and then home. Buddy and I are fine. Walk back with everyone else. Don't see or hear anything unusual the entire way back. Pack our stuff and everybody goes home. Spend the next month talking about how weird that was. Some guys are convinced there was a drone and we stumbled across a drug deal gone bad or a government kidnapping. Others are 100% on board with the idea it was a UFO. I don't know what the hell to think. Sheriff traced truck and camper back to family from out of state. Never found anybody, and they were declared missing. 2 years later, still no trace of them. We still camp and train out there, but the new policy is to shoot any UFOs and drones on site. No mysterious disappearances or unexplained lights since.
Got a long one for you guys. It's been quite a few years since this happened, and I don't think our community will ever recover. I'm a police officer in Mission County. Got a report about a missing 7-year-old girl. Me and another officer from the station got sent out to the residence. The family lived in a small community just outside the county seat's town limits. Very nice houses. Upper middle class. Apparently she had been playing with her friend all day and never returned home. The parents were visibly upset when we showed up, telling us we only had so much time and that we had to find her that night. The girl's father, whose name is Travis, seemed very unsatisfied with us, but we had a protocol to follow. Get all the descriptions of the daughter and the friend she was with the day she went missing. Her name's Katie, 7 years old, dark brown hair, was wearing a yellow Hello Kitty shirt with blue jeans. She had a Pokemon backpack and she was with her friend Jade. Knowing how hard this situation must be for them, I reassure them that we'll do our best, and she'll most likely turn up. It was still early in the day, so we continued our investigation and stopped by the friend's house. Parents were unaware of their daughter's friend going missing. Asked if we could talk to their daughter. They seemed hesitant at first, but politely agreed. Daughter doesn't recall anything at first, but soon exclaimed that a man in a truck pulled up to talk with them. Asked who this man was and what the conversation was about. Says the man had long, black, greasy hair and asked if the girls liked video games. Said they both responded with yes, and the man smiled and drove off. Was that all he did? He didn't get out of the truck? No, sir, he just left. Ask about the truck. She described it more as a Ford Bronco than a pickup truck. The dad chimed in almost immediately after hearing this. I think I know that vehicle, always parked out in front of an Arby's in town. Ask him if he knows the owner. No, I've just seen it around before. It might not even be it, but I thought I'd tell you in case it helped. Tell him it does help. After a quick chit-chat about how horrible it must be for her parents to go through that. We continued back to the station to go over the notes we had, preparing for more investigation the next day. Next day, I get some information from the other officer working the case. Got some information on the Bronco the kid saw the other day. Shows me the registration for a 1988 brown Ford Bronco. You sure this is it, bud? Oh yeah, got reports about this creep driving around harassing people. The registration to a Thomas McKinley. Decide we should go pay him a visit today. After doing some paperwork and having lunch, we went out to the address registered to the vehicle. Run down the mobile home with junk piled up in front of it. Had a porch built off the front of it with even more junk. Obviously hoarders. Lo and behold, there's the brown Bronco. All right, let's go knock on his door. Make our way through the maze of garbage to the door. Give the usual very loud and obnoxious police knock. A woman answers the door. Can I help you, officers? Yes, we're looking for the owner of that SUV out there, a Mr. Thomas McKinley. Says it's her husband and he's in the living room, invites us in. The house is filled with junk. Get to the living room and there's an old man sitting in a lazy boy. Tom, these is police officers want to talk with you. Visibly, this guy was not how the girl described the driver. Are you the owner of that Ford Bronco parked outside? Yes, it's mine, but I never drive it anymore since disability got the best of me. Tell him we've gotten reports that somebody been driving around in that truck harassing people. He looks at the floor and sighs. That's probably Caleb. He calls for him to come out of his room. He's a tall young man with long, greasy black hair and very pale skin. Immediately give my partner a look like, that's him. Ask him if he's been harassing people in his father's truck. He breaks down and starts crying. I have no friends, I just want friends. People think I'm mentally disabled. He starts wailing and freaking out. His mother calms him down. Caleb is autistic and doesn't really fully comprehend what he's doing. Immediately think that this guy might not have the mentality to pull off a kidnapping. Ask him about two little girls he stopped to talk to the other day. Tells us he stopped because the one girl had a Pokemon backpack and his favorite Pokemon is Fennekin. All right, this clearly couldn't have kidnapped that girl. Tell him that we're going to have to question him more, but since he's clearly unstable and overwhelmed, we'll come back tomorrow. We didn't have anything on the kid and we're lucky enough to even be invited into the house. Decide to wrap it up, collect out notes and head back. Get a call later that night from the mother that somebody's outside threatening to kill her son. Get my partner and we head out to the property. We show up, and to my surprise, it's Katie's dad, Travis, outside screaming at the family in the house. I know that Spurg did something to her. Tell me where she is. He was in a serious rage. Wouldn't even stop after he saw us pull up. Hey, what's going on, bud? Talk to me. What are you doing here? He's visibly pissed off and starts directing his anger towards me. You stupid pigs are doing the worst job ever. Tell him we're doing our best to find her and she'll most likely turn up soon. Yeah, in a body bag. That's what you want, isn't it? Not going to lie, he was getting to me. Continue trying to calm him down until he eventually does. Starts talking more rationally about how this is the hardest thing he's ever gone through. Tell him I couldn't even imagine what it's like. But he shouldn't have come here. Tell him I'm going to let him off with a warning. But if he comes back again, I will get him for trespassing and threatening assault. He still seems angry about the whole, reluctantly agrees and gets in his truck and drives off. Go and tell the family that the guy has left. The old man opens the door and is clearly pissed off at what happened. What the hell was that about? My son never did anything. Can't you see how terrified he is? The young man was clearly shaken up and was clinging to his mother in fear. Felt bad for the guy knowing he's not all there. Tell him it won't happen again, and if it does, he'll be escorted to the police station. The man seems somewhat more calm. Tell them all to have a good night and to call if anything happens again. Finally off work for that. Another night of no sleep. Get up the next day with the same routine. No leads, no tips, nothing. Just patrol the streets and hope something comes up. A few days go by, nothing from Katie's parents and nothing from the McKinleys. I think that maybe the family is starting to come to terms with it. A few more days pass before I get a call from the McKinleys. Please, you have to help. Caleb has disappeared. My first thought was Katie's dad. Oh God, I hope he didn't do what I think he did. Tell them I'll be right there. Hang up the phone. This is stressing me out so much. Make it out to the house and Caleb's mother tells me he's been gone for days. Bronco's still there, his phone's still there, so must not be far, I thought. Tell her I'll go look for him. He must have walked the old county road into town. Drive down the old highway for a couple miles before reaching a small pull-of that used to be a logging road. There's a pickup truck a little down the overgrown road. Decide to check it out. Park the cruiser at the beginning of the road and start walking towards the truck. Hey, I know this truck, it's Travis. Peer into the truck windows and see a wallet on the dash, sunglasses, and a sweatshirt. Look out into the woods and shout for Travis. Hello, Travis, you out there, bud? Nothing. I knew I should have looked into it more, but my shift was almost over. When I eventually returned to the area, the truck was still there. Nothing changed. Checked out the woods and found a set of car keys hanging from a tree branch. Still no sign of Travis or Caleb. I hope he didn't kill the kid and then himself. Heard nothing from either family for weeks. Nothing happened. Until by pure luck or chance, I have no idea how we could get so lucky. We got a call about a domestic dispute. It was one of the neighbors in the little community outside town. The woman was frantic and was exclaiming that she had killed her. Show up, and a woman had beaten her husband to near death with a baseball bat. He was definitely knocked out and bleeding badly, but wasn't dead. Never saw something so gruesome in my life. But what we found inside the house was absolute horror. The man who owned the house was a small business owner. I had knew him as the kind old man that ran an electric shop downtown area. When we calmed the woman down, she started shouting in a hysterical fashion. I had no idea, I had no idea, I had no idea, please believe me. Initially confused until I hear my partner call out to me. Holy shit, Danny, get your ass in here, you're not gonna believe this. Rush over to where my partner was, standing just in front of an open door that led down into a basement. He shined his flashlight, illuminating the darkness. And there she was. Katie, curled up in a little ball in the corner with two other kids, another girl and another boy. Feel absolutely horrified by the discovery. We got them out of there as quickly as we could. They all looked malnourished and had visible welts and marks on their bodies. Jesus Christ, Scotty, this is horrible. After interviewing his wife, we discovered that they had just recently gotten married, and that she had no idea what he was doing since they also recently moved in together. He had hoped she would be his partner in crime, but soon mistaken after he showed her his torture chamber. That's when she panicked and attacked him, fearing that he would hurt her. When I asked what he had the children for, she responded, I have no idea. We never got an answer from Mr. Henley either since he died on arrival at the hospital. We told Katie's mom we found her after getting her out of the house. She was there in less than 5 minutes and was completely awestruck that her daughter, who had been missing for over a month, was found. I had never seen someone cry tears of joy so hard. She had lost her daughter, then lost her husband. I could only imagine the relief she felt having her daughter in her arms again. She asked me about Travis and if we knew anything about him. I just shook my head. I couldn't even tell her what we assumed he had done and what happened. I was disgusted with the entire situation, but relieved it was finally over. I see Katie and her mom from time to time, mostly at the park while I'm patrolling. She remarried and seems very happy with her life, but I know none of us will ever recover from what happened. I haven't thought about that in years. Still makes me uneasy knowing that you never really truly know somebody. Travis and Caleb never turned up, and I think that's for the best.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentexts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.